type of joint is the ankle? Do you know? Yeah, which means how does it move? It slides and glides, right? Yeah. Do you think if we're talking in the world of flexibility or mobility, you want a stable joint or a mobile joint?
A flexibility?
Stable. The ankle joint is one of the joints you want to be like, you want to work on more stability versus mobility. And that's a lot of what are the things we're about to talk about. What are some issues do you think you see in ankle injuries that would create lack of ankle mobility? Yeah.
Multiple sprained ankles.
Yeah, exactly. Injuries over time, like producing scar tissue, calf strains, right? Shin splints, Achilles tendinopathies. Plantar fasciitis is a huge one we see, like 10% of the population has that. And that's all dysfunction of the foot is what creates stuff like that, right? IT band syndrome, which we see quite a bit, and sometimes that's hard to diagnose, but, and then most of all ACL injuries come from lack of mobility in the ankle. Why do you think poor ankle mobility would contribute to an ACL tear?
Well, you're
Think
not gonna
about-
move, so then there's going to be like that quick movement. There's more chance of a ripping. and
So-
your body's
Like
not
more
moving with it.
torque on your knee.
So you're not wrong. So the body is always going to take the path of the least resistant, right? So that's the problem with a lot of issues with the body is the human body is always going to go the easiest route, even if it's the wrong route, right? The body's not going to go do what's right for itself. So when you have a tight ankle, it's going to affect your knee joint, right? And what it does a lot of times is poor dorsiflexion creates knee valgus when jumping and landing and pivoting and things like that. So if your knees are constantly in a valgus, you can end up with an ACL tear or injury. We don't have to say exactly what the injury might be, but it's definitely one of the most common injuries from ankle issues. What is ankle mobility? And you can think about that broad spectrum, like what is mobility in general? The availability of what? Exactly, yeah, motion, right? And we're going to talk about, I think, hopefully we'll get to it today. Like we talk about the difference between flexibility and mobility. That's like a little bit of a brain fuck on talking about it, but it's really good to know, I think. And then we talked about the joint. What is the most, so the ankle joint has three joints, right? The ankle itself has 3 joints, but the one most important is what one? Anyone know the name of it? I was hoping you did, so I don't have to pronounce it.
I used to.
I definitely don't.
It's the connection point of what? Think about the bones that go into your ankle, and what is your foot? What is the bone in your foot that connects to your ankle? Your talus,
Alice.
and it connects to your tibia. And that joint is your talocrucial. Talocrural. Go ahead and pronounce it correctly now.
Can you spell that again?
Yeah, talocrural. Cruel. There you go. That's correct. Yes, cruel. I think I always put an I in it. I don't know why. Like crucial. I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. Okay, let's go over the movements of this joint and the responsibilities. What are the 4 movements of the ankle? We talked about one a lot.
Dorsiflexion.
Yeah, which is what? Yeah, exactly. So what's the opposite of dorsiflexion? Yeah, which is down. And then there's 2 more.
Supination.
Eversion is pronation, and inversion is supination, which I think is stupid. They use so many words to try to describe it, but that's what it is.
Eversion is pronation.
Say it again? Eversion is pronation, yeah. The ankle rolls in, right? Eversion, pronation, ankle rolls in. Supination, inversion, the ankle rolls out. But let's quickly go back to just dorsiflexion. So now we know, right, it's up. Considered to be the most important degree of freedom of the ankle, right? You can understand why. It allows the tibia, the shin, to move forward. And that's where the ankle test, which we'll go over in a second, that's how that comes into play. Like, if I can't get my knees over my ankles, there's a problem there, right? And it's going to affect movement, especially with athletes, but in everyday movements like squatting to pick something off the floor, walking down a set of stairs. If you have poor dorsiflexion, it's really hard to walk down a set of stairs because you need that pull up to be able to step down and step up. Did I say that right? Walking up a set of stairs, that's the opposite. It's if you have poor plantar flexion, it's down. Okay. So it's crucial for the correct body pattern, right? What things, let's all tie it together now. Like what things do we do here that help dorsiflexion if someone has limited dorsiflexion? Let's talk about cheat codes, I guess. Cheat codes for poor dorsiflexion. When you're not thinking about improving their dorsiflexion, you're just thinking how I can get through this movement because I can see that they have a poor dorsiflexion. The wedge, right? On what? On your heels, right? Anywhere else? So I just meant you can do heels, but what else you can do? Just kidding, guys, that's it.
Is it?
Seeing, just wanted to see, I literally wanted someone to be like, there is nothing, Heather. But no one was going to do it. Okay, so bad plantar flexion. We can't sit on our butt, right? In a low kneeling position, we can't point our toes, like things like that. Like being able to go like this, like kind of like we were just doing like this. This is going to be hard for someone that has bad plantar flexion, right? And then eversion, if you're flat-footed, you're most likely going to pronate your foot during walking or exercise. If I am a pronator, what can I do? Once again, just go over cheat code of what would I do for a pronator during exercise. My what am I trying to say? My midfoot is caving, right? My midfoot's caving because I'm pronated. So what can I do in movement to support that person's pronation? I'm not talking about strengthening, just cheat codes.
I'd put a plate by their pinkies.
By their pinkies, exactly, right. Because you're trying to get them to pull off of that inversion, right? Yeah, it's really good. Eversion, excuse me. And ways to see it, right? If you're watching someone squat for the first time and you see their baby toes come off the floor and their ankle is rotating, they're most likely pronating their foot, right? So that's why I think it's crucial to see someone squat barefoot, yeah. Yeah, so they need better drive through baby toe and better arch support. So when I was reading this, I was going over like some of the cues that I use, and you know, like when I talked about like the reasons for wedging, the reason for wedging isn't to pull someone away from that spot, it's to motivate them to push into it, right? So sometimes we use like bands or even a plate on their arch to tell them to not touch, right? But I think that's confusing now that I'm thinking about it, because if I always am using tools to say, hey, I want you to now drive into this tool more, but then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a plate here, but then I'm gonna put a plate here too. That's not helping them? Do you know what I'm saying? Because now I don't want them to touch this. I only want them to touch this. So I think a better cue, which I use most of the time, is just, hey, there's fire here, don't touch the fire, right? So really drive through the whole outside of your foot, big toe, baby toes. And I think it's good to communicate that if you're giving someone a wedge for the first time. Hey, I'm not putting this wedge here to keep you away from it. I'm putting it here to motivate you to push down on it. Yeah. If you have a very high arch, do you think you'd struggle from inversion or eversion?
Inversion.
Yes. Such a trick question, right? And eversion is your ankle pushing up and out, right? And that's a way rarer to see. Way rare. I can't even think of like one client I know that has a really high arch. I know a past client, but. And then if I'm watching someone squat for the first time, what would their foot do and where would I want to coach them into pressing with supination issues?
Pressing on the big toe.
Exactly. Better driving up, exactly. Talked about that, beautiful. Da-da-da. Okay, let's go over how can you test for ankle mobility. Number one would be the squat, right? I'm gonna look at them from all 5 points of view for ankles specifically. So I wanna watch, which I go over this in all the intakes with people, but of course I don't catch everything. So the first coach that has that person a few times, that's their responsibility to write further notes on like Because the more you see someone work too, the more information you gather from them. When I meet them one time for 45 minutes, I'm not going to see as much as you're going to see long term. But yeah, watching them squat from all 5 points, because this range of motion, right, I can see a lot on this kind of things that I'm looking for. This range of motion, I can see now supination or, what's the other one? Supination, pronation, thank you, which I pronate. I can also look for knee valgus and things like that in these positions. If I'm dealing with dorsiflexion issues, what compensations will I create?
More hinging.
More what?
Hinging at the hips.
Meaning less what? What do you mean?
Depth in the squat.
Right, depth in the squat, so my chest will drop, right, because I'm trying to get to that depth. It'd be more hips instead of quads. Be more hips instead of quads. So when yeah, probably, yeah. What will you see? Hello. How are you? Taking on an English accent for this coaching. It's very professional. Just in here fucking off, but yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Heels coming off the ground is what you'll see with dorsiflexion, right? So that's easy for me to see in an assessment, so usually I always catch that one. But there's one more when we're talking about dorsiflexion issues. What will my knees not do if I have poor dorsiflexion?
They won't go very far.
Exactly, and that's another way, like, those are people, it's like you, but that's not your, actually that is your issue, isn't it? People feel like they're gonna fall over when they try to go lower, right? They go like, they feel like they're gonna they've really thrown off balance. So once again, I think dorsiflexion is most common and it's the easiest to see. Most mobility issues are coming from the ankle or the hip. So remember, the thing you see the knee doing isn't usually what the knee's not usually responsible. If someone has limited big toe mobility, you're gonna have issues with all of that gripping of the floor. So having them stretch out their toes prior to lifting, tight calves, limit mobility. But remember that your gastroc attaches, someone tell me if I'm wrong, your gastroc attaches below your knee, your soleus attaches above your knee, or is it the opposite? It's either or, one or the other. So this is a soleus stretch. Your soleus attaches below, your gastroc attaches above. Hence why if I keep my legs straight, I feel my gastroc, but if I bend my knee, I feel my soleus. Whew, glad we're doing this together, guys. Thanks for all the feedback. Okay, and I think now we've communicated flat-footed, right? If I pronate, what will my knees do? Which is?
Knee valgus?
Yes. That one, those are ones I always forget. So it's worth repeating. But I wouldn't say that to a client, but yeah.
Knee valgus.
Valgus is in, yeah, exactly. We kind of gone over drop foot, right? We feel comfortable with drop foot. Weak arches, right? How can I support someone with a weak arch? Other than if we're not talking about cheats, how can I help someone with a poor arch? Poor arch, weak arch. It's not a trick question. It's a very,
Focusing on their toes. And
exactly, right. Getting them to work on tripoding, really overemphasizing, keeping their arch off the floor is going to eventually strengthen their foot. But we also do things like toe walking, heel walking, calf raises barefoot, things like that, heel to toe rocks. Bunions. Who's got a bunion? No one? Just me? What do you think bunions do to your feet? I got my toes done just for you guys. It's gator blue.
I noticed. Is the other one orange?
No, that's what Roger asked me. When I showed him, he's like, I'm like, no, I'm not that crazy. Get one color out of me. Yeah. Any guesses what bunions do to your feet?
I mean, they make it so your toe comes in
my toe comes in.
Ow, sorry.
Yeah, right. Your toes get pushed out, which mine, if you see my mom's feet, you'd understand immediately. But I do a lot of work to not end up with that. But bunions can either be hereditary or their functionality, right? So like if you're not using your muscles correctly on your feet, you're going to develop bunions because the muscles in your feet aren't working correctly here when you're walking. You're dumping your foot, which I dump my foot, but I've had my feet looked at by physical therapists and they think mine's structural, like it's not anything I'm doing wrong. But yeah, it's going to push your toes out. So people have a really hard time gripping toes because their toes are like this, right? Their toes are pushed like this. And you can see it in someone's socks when their toes are really narrow, like if they're all pushed in like that. I don't necessarily ask them to take their socks off, but I really try to heavy coach, like spread your toes and push down to try to emphasize that. I think they're also less likely to drive off their big toe. So you end up with some caving of the arch with that. But yeah, and getting people to train barefoot that are bunion, I think is also really important to help just get them out of that shoe. Come on, what's going on? Okay. How do we stretch the calf? Because that'd be your first root of, right, like, hey, this person definitely has tight ankles. Well, I don't know at this point, just from watching them move, I don't know if this is a old injury, like tissue buildup. I don't know if this is a, hey, you don't move enough injury. I don't know if this is a just tight fascia issue. If it's a tight fascia issue, that's the best answer, right? So what are my answers for fascial release? Stretching, just basic stretching, right? I really like, it's called a 3D calf stretch, and you just have someone come forward in all different ranges. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna bend forward, I'm gonna cross body, go forward, I'm gonna go out, cross forward. So 3D just meaning three directional. Heel planted, knee goes straight, right? Knee bending as you drive forward, three ways, straight on, internal, lateral. But, you know, basic calf stretches are fine as well. Negative calf raises I like a lot. So like on the edge of the valley, just getting someone to hold, right? If I am feeling, so this is important, when I have someone stretch the calf for the first time, I ask them, where are you feeling it? Sounds like a stupid question, but if someone's feeling it down here, why do you think that's bad? What?
You said why?
Why do you think it's bad if they're feeling it in their Achilles? I don't want to stretch my Achilles because it's a tendon, not a muscle. So if it's a tendon issue, I want to strengthen the area, right? So once, you know, like I'm not saying every single time they do it, I'm going to ask them, but a newer client, I'm probably going to communicate with every stretch, right? Still like, hey, where are you feeling this? To make sure I'm either giving them the correct cues for the stretch or they're able to like mentally think about what they're supposed to be feeling. If someone's like, hey, I'm feeling a lot of strain on my Achilles, I'm probably going to get rid of it and write some notes and focus on it differently. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Negative calf raises, right? Stretch it out, open up the joint. Elevated knee over toe stretch, working on dorsiflexion. So this is one we use a lot, and you've probably already seen people doing it. But elevated, whether it's a bench, a box, that's what it, yeah. I'm gonna keep my heel down, and I'm gonna drive my knee forward. I'm gonna go different directions. So I'm gonna go lateral, internal, but my main goal is to get that knee over that toe, and just to change directions, keeping the heel down the whole time. If someone has super tight ankles, you can do it on an incline bench because the incline will help like feed into the issue a little bit for them, but it will allow them to get a good stretch because of the angle of the bench.
What did you say that was called again?
This is an elevated knee over toe stretch. Elevated knee over toe, working on dorsiflexion. We talked about hinge joint, right? We want the mobility to increase, slide and glide, forward, back. We talked about this already. Ways to strengthen the foot, toes, ankles, right? Barefoot, toe walking, heel walking. When you're coaching toe walking and heel walking, it's real straight knees. Don't let the person bend their knees. That's what people are really gonna wanna do. If they have a problem with it, you would either keep them by a wall, right? Or hold their hand, whatever is easier for you. Calf raises. And then we went over our cheat codes, right? Heel elevation, wedging, barefoot, tripod of the foot. Why, just for kicks, why do you think tripoding your foot is important for movement?
stability.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Of what?
Just create stability.
Uh-huh. Stability of what?
I mean, of that ankle.
But what else does it give you? Everything above it, right? So
Balance.
stabilizing the hips, it's absorbing the movement correctly and safely, right? If my ankle is not mobilizing, my body's going to immediately go around, like we said, taking the path of least resistance, probably to a path that is not correct or safe. Creating better stability and execution of movement. All the things you said wonderfully. Okay, and then of course we want to also strengthen, right? So ways to strengthen, let's say I'm working on someone with dorsiflexion issues and I want to now start like trying to put it more into actual play. I can get a plate. Let's say they have lunges. I can force them into dorsiflexion, right? And I'm not saying aggressively, but if it's something that they've been working on over time, not a new client, right? You can elevate their toe and have them work on that depth of that lunge, because now I'm forcing my foot into dorsiflexion. You can do that with squatting too. Questions about the ankle? I think we have most of the big guys taken care of, like just really making sure they understand tripod, the reason for tripod. If they're struggling with dorsiflexion, you know, like I would always, as the coach, like, hey, has anyone ever given you some stretches you can do on your own for things like this? Like have that kind of material in your head so you're able to bring more value to what you're delivering is important for me. Any questions? Guys, we're killing it. 30 minutes in. We're done with it.
Wow.
Just kidding, we're not done. What kind of joint is the knee? We're moving up, we're moving up. Don't strafe too far.
Lever? Leave it lever? No, hinge?
Yeah, it's hinge. And you know the anatomy of the knee?
I should, but no.
Yes, you should. That's why we're doing this.
I know a little bit.
Well, you have your femur
There you go.
and your tibia,
There you go.
and then there's your patella.
Your patella, uh-huh. One more. Actually, two more, but one more big one that is in the same category in right now.
And that in the same category?
Fibula.
Oh,
And then meniscus.
that's considered.
Well, in what I'm going to talk about, it's, yeah. That's why I said continue where you were at, and then I was going to veer off track, yeah. The meniscus is on top of what? And what does it do? The meniscus sits on top of your tibia,
It's just cartilage, right? Like,
and it stabilizes and it disperses weight correctly. Yeah. And in most cases, like I just talked about, pain in the knee comes from overcorrection of hip or ankle imbalances. Bad knee, bad alignment. Need to strengthen all three to correct knee issues, right? So I'm never just going to look at the knee if someone has knee pain, right? I'm going to strengthen their hips, I'm going to strengthen their ankles, mobilize their hip, mobilize their ankles, strengthen their butt. So our basic movements are hip thrust, right? Hamstring raises, abduction, adduction. All the move. I think in your head, those you should have images coming up when I say those things. Yeah,
who, me?
everyone.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like meaning that's what I'm hoping. That's where we're at. If I say like
literally, me, it's
hip
just
thrust,
like-
hamstring, abduction, adduction. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's yeah. And you have all different variations of adduction, adduction now, right? Like standing, banded, laying.
It's my whole physical therapy routine.
Knee pain, if it is coming from the knee, is like we said, ACL, right? Replacement knee, meniscus, arthritic, jumper's knee, over underdoing it. For our clients, I think a lot of it's underdoing it. We did have a client who overdoes it with he has jumper's knee. So basically, we just took him off of front-loaded movements and really worked on his posterior chain, gave him a couple weeks, and he was fine. Because a lot of times when people are diagnosed with these issues, they're going to physical therapy, right? So I'm going to lay off whatever, and the coaches should always be asking that, like, hey, you're going to PT, what are you doing in PT, so that I make sure I don't do it, because the idea is not to overtrain them. So if they're doing a ton of knee-related things, I'm not going to work the knee at all. I'm going to leave it alone, let the physical therapist do that, and I'll just work on everything else that is surrounding it. Things to think about with replacement knees or range of motion, right? If I have someone fresh back from a knee replacement, I'm not gonna force them in any sort of depth. I'm just gonna let them get comfortable, ask what their PT is allowing them to do, which these are things like as a community here, we always talk about, so it'll always be in the notes for you. Like, it's not like it'll be catch you, oh, your knee replacement, I didn't know, you know, so. And then arthritis of the knee is huge. So in your opinion, if someone comes in like, hey, my knee's feeling really arthritic today, and their program was, let's say they had lunges 3x20, they had like goblet squats 3x15, and they had trap bar 3x10, which is never gonna happen, but let's say that's what they had. What could you do maintaining those 3 exercises to allow them to do it, but to not to progress the issue of inflammation in the joint?
Less weight, less range of motion.
What else you could do? Because loading is really good for joint, right? So good for arthritis. So what can I do? Let me say it again. So I said, I could do trap bar for 3x10. I could do,
Eccentrics, would that help?
you could do eccentrics. You can also just reduce the rep range. Hey, let's do 3 sets of 5 to 8 and see how your knee feels and leave it there, right? That's usually what I do is, hey, your reps really high. Let's get rid of the reps, still do the movements, but not overdo the rep range. I think less reps and higher weight are a lot less on people's joints than high reps are on people's joints, yeah. How do we strengthen the knee? Any like basic strengthening quad exercises you can do? Let's say the person had a knee replacement. What's like a beginner strengthening thing I can do just for the knee that avoids every other muscle in the body? All the quad muscles. So you might see just quad lockouts, right? Just really working on, you're wanting that person to see their knee get closer to the ground. Building neuromuscular, right? Hey, I just want you to really think about feeling that muscle, right? Stuff like that. You can do, you'll see straight leg raises, right? Same idea. Now I'm gonna work on flexing my quad, right? You're trying to feel it here. Then I want you to raise that leg. And in programming, sometimes it will say with VMO focus. You know where your VMO is? It's your internal quad muscle. It's this muscle right here. So your VMO. So in programming, you might see VMO focus. So you're just going to be more internal. Because the VMO does a lot of stability for the knee. It's that teardrop, yo. What, I don't come across as a yo sayer?
You went from a British accent to saying yo.
Okay, I go back to my British accents. Please, quiet down, children. Okay. So annual quad extension, also one we use, just like having the person sit on the edge of the bench with their knee supported and just, hey, lock out your knee, feel your quad, right? Roger went over the manual quad extensions, where you're pressing into them.
We did quad ones.
No?
We
Okay.
did hamstrings, I don't think we did quad.
Okay, let's do it real quick. So, remember when we did the, where's my train of thought? Oh, the hamstring curls over here when I was saying how it's important to like have them sit on the back of the bench so their hip doesn't get involved. It's the same reason on this exercise. I want their joint right on the edge of that so that, because if they're like this, they start using other things. So I just want them here. I'm gonna have them support themselves through the bench. I'm gonna be down here, putting pressure here, not too low, because the bonier it is, the more people are gonna complain that you're pressing into their bones, right? I'm gonna have them, hey, remember the quad holds we've done where you wanna feel your quad? Okay, I want you to do that now. All right, good, go ahead, flex. And then I want you to come up, I'm gonna press, and I want you to fight me on the way down, pressing, control, right? And this is definitely a skilled thing where like, you have to figure out the pressure balance that you need to challenge the person so they feel in the right place, but their knee's not screaming at them and they're getting something out of it. It's a very like balanced beamy exercise. You have to figure out what works, what doesn't. You also see, did he go over banded quad extensions? Like a band around the ankle and they're like this? No, let me do that real quick. So we just came up with a better way of doing it. We used to do it way more complex, but this works a lot better. So I'm gonna take my band, I'm gonna go all the way around my my bench. I'm gonna loop my feet, right? Once again, I'm nice and tight. I'm gonna get them to push down on the bench so they feel stable, drive into this leg. And then get you that quad lockout, feel it, go back, relax. Right, and just really focus on their energy. We also do it a little bit incline.
So what did y'all do before that?
We used the boxes and we wrapped it around the boxes, which is a pain in the ass to set up, so this is much better. This is just gonna get me more mobility, more range of motion with someone who's tall. But very easy exercise to set up, so it's perfect. Yeah. We know now, TKs. Have we gone over terminal knee extensions? I feel like you've probably seen them now, but that's a huge, we use TKs a lot.
What is it called?
Terminal knee extensions. It's a big rehab exercise. What do you think's the most difficult things for people to do with knee injuries? Flexion or extension? Not knee replacements, but like a ACL tear or a meniscus tear.
It's going to be probably gaining an extension.
Exactly, extension, right? So this terminal knee extension allows you to strengthen all your quad muscles and force extension on the knee joint. So I'm gonna loop my band. If this program says TKEs, it's gonna be a single leg, right? If it says double leg TK, it's gonna be a double leg TK. But it's opposite of normal, because remember you and I were talking about on Friday, like if it says, with I think it was Chris's program or something, if it says, doesn't say anything, it says lat pull down, it's gonna be a what? 2 or 1?
2.
Right, it will say single arm. A lot of times now, especially with the app, we have DA, which is double arm, but sometimes on the semi-4s, all it says will say is lat pull down. You're always gonna go double. If it doesn't say anything, you're always gonna go double. But TKs is the opposite. If it doesn't say anything, it's single. So traditional, right, is going to be slightly above the knee joint. If I have someone who's really arthritic or inflamed in their knee joint, I'm gonna go right in the joint. This is gonna be the most stable. Same thing with, remember Spanish squats? Same reasoning, right? I'm just supporting the joint better. So now, if I'm coaching this person for the first time, hey, I just want you to take a step back so you feel the tension on the band. I don't want you to go aggressive. People that have been doing it forever, like you can really yank on it and get some good work, but if I'm just learning it, and especially, we're gonna talk about this in a second with the psychology issue with knees. I just want someone to feel like they can do the exercise initially, not that it's actually like working even really, right? Like I just want to prove to them they can do it, and then next time I'll try to get them to do it to the point where it's actually making a difference for them. So if it's my right leg, right, I'm gonna bend my left leg, I'm gonna squeeze my left butt, because the idea here is to make the right knee do everything. If I allow my left leg to lock out, I'm gonna start getting all into my hips and other things are gonna try to help. Right, so I'm gonna bend my left and now I'm gonna let my heel come off the ground and I'm gonna drive back off my heel, locking out my quad muscle. Remember, I really want you to feel it here, right? I'm gonna come back, drive back, squeeze and lock out. I'm sitting into my left a little bit, squeezing my left glute so that my left doesn't, because you'll see people go like this. They'll get all happy dancing, both their knees, their hips will shift back and forth. Okay, I really want you to squeeze your opposite butt cheek so that when you're working, that right side's the only thing working for you. Does that make sense? You don't have to allow your heel to come off the ground, right? But what does it demand for me to keep my heel on the ground? Oh, my knee's cracking, you hear that? If I'm gonna keep my heel on the ground and push my knee forward, what is it asking of my ankle? Right, exactly. So if you're teaching someone you can just feel you're dealing with, that's gonna be a lot. Remember, the more cues you give someone, the harder it's gonna be. So if you just see them, their natural instinct's gonna be to do this. There's no issue there, right? Because I'm still targeting the issue. But some people might do it like this, that's fine too. It's just good to know the difference, that it's both the same, it's just mobility and I think a lot of it's coordination. Like, hey, I'm gonna bend my knee, but not lift my heel up. And then double leg TKEs, right? Same here. What I usually do for someone, especially like right now having so many semi-2s, is I'll set it up with a peg about level their knee, so that way it's easier for them to access, because if every single time the band's falling to the bottom, you're over there trying to help someone else and you're seeing the struggle and you're like, God, I gotta go help them. Versus if it's here, they can usually get their feet in by themselves. If you're dealing with someone with really poor balance, of course, I don't like you wanna be there for that. If you're dealing with someone who's really big feet, you usually need help. Yeah. So once again, right, I'm just gonna put my knees in, either joint or slightly above the joint, depending on what the person prefers, or if you know they have a lot of knee issues, you're always gonna go in joint. I'm gonna pull back so I feel like I have good balance, right, between the bands. I don't want lefty being righter than righty being tighter than lefty. Just coming here to cough and leave. I can hold the rack for this one just to make myself feel more stable, right, because now both my knees are banded. Same idea, I can be here, working on that lockout at the top, really trying to focus on feeling all my muscles, or I can come off my heel and land on my heel, whatever is more accessible for them. I'm always gonna start with a blue or a green band there. It'll always be labeled, but the more advanced someone gets, they'll get to orange. Because it can be a pretty heavy pull. Like your quads can pull a lot of weight when they're healthy. Sound good? Hammies, of course, strengthen the knee, right? The stronger my hamstrings, the better my knees will be. So we hamstring raises, hamstring holds, we talked about those. What do you think some options are for if I'm dealing with someone with knee pain? How can I get them to now use their knee but not get them to the point where they're in pain? Let's talk about squats first. What can I do to unload them in a squat?
To unload them?
Yeah,
Use the TRX.
exactly. And what would my angle be?
Your angle?
Would my feet be under me or ahead of me?
Yeah, that too.
Exactly. Unloaded is ahead, loaded is under, right? And there's the this thing has it will say loaded or unloaded squat, and that's the way in your head to know. I mean, you can watch the video too quickly. That's what Kira and I were talking about Friday. So she coached our client Chris on Friday, and I said to her, like, the best thing you can do, because I do it too sometimes. Like, I read an exercise, and I don't know. Have you looked at the Semi-2 program on here much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taylor.
Okay, so like one of the greatest.
Videos.
What she didn't realize is that there's videos you can watch of every exercise. You know that, right? So like a lot of times, let's say Chris is finishing his warm-up set and he has something coming up that I'm not sure, I'll literally be coaching him and I'll just hit it and be like, continue a bit. Mostly I can just read the points of performance and I'm like, oh, that's what it is. But that's a really useful tool, I think, especially in the first few months of being here, you might use a lot. But yeah, so that's what, I was like, how did I get to that? It's because of the load versus unload. Whew! Load is under, unload is head, right? Who's better at coaching, me or Roger? I don't know. What's another way of unloading other than TRX? I don't know if we've gone over this. I'm just asking you to think outside the box. Like if you had some, if you, huh?
Less range of motion. So just
But I'm specifically unloading.
unloading.
Yeah. What is another tool I could use to unload? Actually, two tools I can think of I could unload. Take weight away from them.
And a band.
Yep, exactly. How would I set it up?
Set them on the bar and have it around there.
What bar? Yeah, up there? She's like pulling shit out of her ass. Yeah. It's fine. It's good. It's how you learn, right? And I do what? Hold it up high and grip it like this. It's so perfect, Kira. Yes, it's exactly.
Put it like
No, I'm leading you in the right direction.
Like for real, yeah.
for real.
Show me, show me.
It's just
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you could even do it just what you did under your armpits.
under my armpits.
You could do that, right? Because you're
Yeah,
still.
that would work.
Yeah,
Or you can just hold it like you were, right?
exactly. Wait, but is this really a technique you've used?
No.
Oh, you're
I mean-
literally pulling it out of your butt.
I'm thinking
Kind
it
of?
through.
Yeah,
kind
right.
of,
Show me
yeah.
the other one you're thinking of.
The other one I was thinking of,
Yeah.
I was just, I mean, I was
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
tension in it and then squatting down.
Yeah, you definitely could do that. That's great. I think that that's more complicated to set up than the TRX, or this is fun to watch though. But yeah, so what we do is we just, but you know what, that second one the one behind your shoulders is awesome because, so 99% of people, this is the way you'd go, right? Like, hey, I just want you to unload, be able to get in your mobility a little bit. We're taking weight off of you, so you should feel more comfortable going low. But we have a client who has a lot of elbow and hand issues. She's not gonna hold a band, right? But she also had bad knees. So I can't have her hold on anything. So I can't use a TRX. I can't have her hold the straps. My third option, which I won't tell you what it is yet, but I can't have her do that either. So what Kiri just showed me is perfect, right? I can get her here, lock her in, and just have her work here because it's still unloading her. That's perfect, right? Or the butt, yeah. Okay, so there's one more. If I want someone to get deeper in a squat and I don't want them to load their joint, what can I do? Yep. I can hold the rack, right? And especially if I'm like about to coach someone through like a barbell squat or a front squat, like any heavy movement like that, I'm probably gonna warm that person up with rack squats. And it's also a good, which we'll talk about this later, it's also a good filler. There's such a thing as fillers in exercise, and you need to have a memory of what those are, because it's like, hey, I am way behind on my time right now. I need to go set up this, I need to go do that, and I can see this client's ready to do something. All right, Chris, like I really want you to, we're gonna do barbell front squats next. Like you're like in the middle, getting the J hooks ready, rushing, and they're like, right? Hey, go over to this rack, get some squats, mobilize your ankles, mobilize your knees. They're like, oh, it's a great idea. And then you saved yourself, you know? Hello, John.
Hi,
How are you? I'm good, how are you?
Do you guys go home at all? The last time I was here, you
No, they just sleep in the ceiling. We got cots up there. Yeah, just tuck them away. Let them take a little nap. Perfect. Range of motion, we already talked about, right? I can just, now we're just having someone be able to squat, so I can start them with an elevated box, right? I can get the 24-inch, and I can just, hey, I just want you to tap your butt to the box, squeeze your glutes, come back up. I think talking someone through the muscles they're using is really important when teaching someone to squat, because people are always gonna use their quads, right? If I can get them to focus more on squeezing their butt, pushing away from the floor, like I can't even count on my hands how many times that's happened where it's like, oh, I don't have any knee pain now that I'm doing it right. We talked about volume, right? If someone has knee pain, hey, let's like keep your exercises but reduce the volume. Let's, like instead of doing a 3x15, let's do a 3x8, and in between, let's do some TKEs. Something like that. If there any range of motion is bothering them, what can I do to get them to load that muscle I'm looking to load without moving the joint? Without moving the joint in a way that is going to bother them. I can do a static hold. So I can get them to hold the rack, right? Find a depth that doesn't hurt you. And then I really just want you to focus your energy on feeling that front quad. Or, hey, I'm going to have you hold here. I just want you to get as low as you can in that squat without pain. And then I just really want you to focus your energy on feeling the muscle you're trying to work, right? So there's different ways you can go about it.
So what was that for again? How to work around?
If any range of motion is really bothering, like the movement on the joint is bothering them, right? Static holds. You can also switch it out totally to posterior chain, right? Hey, this is just like everything is bothering you today, or they come in, because you'll get clients that come in like, oh yeah, my PT said no knee work today, or like no front load. You're like, oh shit, I'm gonna now switch everything for posterior. Okay, let's do RDLs, let's do hamstrings, let's do calf raises. Like, I'm gonna take a whole different approach. So that's a situation where like you might not have that program in front of you because you're literally here by yourself and they come in and you're like, okay, I gotta like work around this but still give them a really good workout.
sharing the slave driver today.
Okay.
She is a slave driver, isn't she?
Yeah. I like to know where you bury your dead.
Obviously there's certain occasions where you might avoid lower body altogether, like, but hopefully that's not the case for 99%. And then the psychological considerations for a client that has knee pain, that has had knee pain for a long time is really important. They usually have to find trust in themselves again with trusting their knee. Finding alternative routes to tell them they're capable is really important. So like having them just go like from a seated to a standing box while you're holding their hands, stuff like that's really helpful. The TRX is helpful. You basically need to focus on building confidence in the beginning with someone like that versus pushing them to do more.
Go for at least 5 of those, like shot on each side.
Questions? Anything else you can think of with the knee that we'd want to talk about? For some reason, like, which pressure, right? Pressure for a lot of things can help people feel more safe. Like having pressure on a joint, that's why there's like compression sleeves and stuff. So if I have someone squatting and they're like, hey, my left knee is really like feeling wobbly or unstable, like I can just take my hands and hold it while they're squatting, and that can fix the insecurity issue for some reason. So long term, what you can use is the band, right? I'm gonna put a band around your knees. I just want you to put tension into it, and it can help stabilize the knee a little bit. Whether it's really stabilizing the knee or it's just mental, like who knows, but if that helps them feel more safe during the movement, then who cares? Questions, comments, concerns? Am I killing it? I saw that once and I thought that was so great. Like they had the little like wheels that you used to use in elementary school, like the little like with the handles on the side, you know, and like sitting on the floor and they're pulling themselves. No, we don't, but that's a great exercise. I think it's like very low level, right? Like it's definitely aimed at someone that has severe degeneration, I think, because ideally I'd want them like on the floor with their heels on the bench, lifting their hips, or doing a hamstring there on the bands or the wheels, but that's way more advanced than that, right? So yeah, no, we do not do it, but it's a great exercise. I've seen it before, yeah.
Down over your PVC, up and over.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna add in some lower back
Good.
positions today before we wrap and roll on that first step.
Let's go over hip joint. Moving up. We're moving up the chain. What kind of joint is the hip socket? The hip joint socket. Ball and socket. And what sits inside what? I was totally just gonna give it away. This is my what, and this is my what.
If I fall, I won't have my stomach.
This is my femur, and this is my what? Huh? My acetabulum. My acetabulum. That's what it sits in, is your acetabulum joint. So I think hips are probably one of the hardest things to diagnose. Like it's really difficult to know exactly what you're seeing. And of course we're always gonna refer out for stuff, but it's at least nice to have an idea of what, yeah, they're very occupied. She needs the boxes. You can go here too, I don't need this. So anterior hip pain, does anyone have any ideas what anterior hip pain might be a sign of?
Like the anterior inside the hip or anterior?
Body, yeah, body. Maybe, but I'm talking about actually diagnosable, like that you want something prescribed for, I guess, other than just strengthening. That's not a bad answer though. Arthritic hip, stress fracture, or labral tear. Both my hips have labral tear. Like you can live through labral tears. Labral. Your labrum is the like jelly like rubber band that sits around all your joints and protects your joints. So if you tear a labrum, it's definitely able to heal on its own. It just might look like a rubber band that has a chunk cut out of it. Some labral tears are so bad, like shoulder labral tears are a lot worse in the sense that you might not want to live with it. It's basically cushion for the ball and socket joints. And then there's one more thing, which is death of the bone, right? Anterior hip pain can be a sign of like actually degeneration in the bone and lack of blood flow. So if any bone isn't getting blood flow, then you end up with degeneration, and that's really hard to obviously reverse. You can get new blood supply to it if it's diagnosed early enough. Of course, physical therapy is prescribed for all these things. Anti-inflammatories, injections are sometimes needed, right? Clinical test is required for labrum tear treatment for sure. Like you're not gonna be able to look at someone and know they have labrum tear. One thing I know I can look at and see a lot of times, or at least work with, is what you might see lateral hip pain from is bursa, like an inflamed bursitis, right? If someone can't lay on their side without lateral hip pain, that's almost always a bursa, inflamed bursa. It's a tough one to heal. A lot of times it needs rest, and a lot of times people have injections with that. But it's very hard to work around it's very hard to get over bursitis, I think. Posterior hip pain, right? And I think a big issue with hip stuff is that a lot of people are having back problems but feel like it's their hip. Because like if someone's having pain up here, this isn't your hip anymore, right? Like my hip ends right here. This is my back. My hips are from here forward. But in the sense of posterior hip pain, piriformis syndrome, right? So that's actually coming from my back. If someone is having hip pain that travels down into their leg, you almost guarantee it's coming from their back. Hip pain isn't going to travel down into their legs or their feet. So sciatica, stretching, right? Anti-inflammatory, injections, treatment plans for that. Obviously, these are not things you need to remember. They're just good information, I think. And then far posterior is most likely your SI joint, right? If someone's like, oh, I'm feeling it all up in here, like that's their SI. Or lower spine conditions, very hard to diagnose, definitely outside of our wheelhouse in the sense of just looking at someone. And then to be able to know, like if someone's like, hey, I'm having pain, like I said, but it's traveling down into their legs, you know it's, hey, I actually think it's coming from your spine, but you can also say like, hey, you don't have to take my word for it, just make sure you, when you talk to your doctor, that you specify that. If your pain gets worse from sitting or bending, it's most likely coming from your back. If pain improves with walking and standing, coming from your back, right? If you have back pain on the same side as your hip, like if, hey, I have anterior hip pain and my low back hurts on my left, it's probably coming from your back. If sneezing, coughing hurts your back hip, it's probably coming from your back. Signs that it's definitely coming from the hip is if your groin hurts. If your groin is hurting here, it's most likely definitely coming from your...
Yeah. So your hips are extremely tight.
In terms of walking, it's your back.
It's your back, yeah.
No, just hold. Big stretch. Just be gentle. But yes.
I feel pretty comfortable with what else is on here with you guys. As far as like hip pain, low back pain, like it's the same thing as the knee and the ankle. Like, hey, if I'm in a lot of pain, I do the same thing I do to the knee, right? I'm gonna regress range of motion, volume, load. I'm really gonna work on getting them into that. I might take some time on pelvic tilting, right? If someone's having a lot of low back pain, I might get rid of hinges for the day and maybe lay down and have them doing pelvic tilts. I think if someone's having back pain, they do a lot better laying down than do standing. But what I just said about that goes against it with our client at 5, Damien. He had a lot of back issues and now he's uncomfortable laying on his back because it kind of is like a PTSD thing. Like that's when I always had my pain, so now I don't want to go there. But most people are more comfortable on their back. I think other than him, the big issue you'll see is people are uncomfortable getting on and off the floor. So if you have an exercise where someone's on the floor and they're like, well, I'm really not comfortable being on the floor, you know, the way to motivate them is, hey, I'm gonna put this bench next to you, so your mat's right here, we can go up step by step, you know, like, especially if it's like a dizziness thing, I take them step by step, okay? So you're gonna go from here to your knees, then you're gonna go here, then you're gonna come here, then you're gonna go here, then we're gonna wait and see how you feel, right, step by step to see how dizzy they're getting doing it. And also that's helping to build their confidence that they can actually do it. So I do try to talk people into going to the floor if they're uncomfortable with it, but it has to be in the right situation. You have to give them comfort points like the bench.
I need this working. So I want you to imagine I'm punching something.
If I'm squatting and I have tight hips, what are some issues I would see?
Great. Little plank there, Aksha. No, now I am.
Not dropping my hips, right? Wanting to go really wide. People that have tight hips want to go really wide when they just normal squat. So like, especially if they're starting a program and they immediately do that, I always want to say like, hey, can I just see you in like a normal shoulder width pattern to see if you're dealing with some tightnesses that I'd want to make sure I'm addressing for you. There's nothing wrong with squatting like this. We're just putting more strain on our groin, so I want to make sure you're also able to access this point. Like once again, those are the way I say things. You don't have to say them the way I say them. You just have to find your own way of delivering the information so they're understanding it and that you understand it too. Okay, let's go over, everyone good? Guys, we're doing so good. Okay, forearm, hand, and foot adjustments. What kind of things can you remember through the last few weeks that we would use for like wrist adjustment, hand adjustment? Let's go over planks. What can I do to help someone feel more comfortable in a plank? What's that? Dumbbells right under them, right, exactly. I can knuckle it. Hand placement, right, yep. Was it, you were with me coaching Steven the other day with the reverse plank? So that's a good one. So like my instinct, because I have mobile shoulders, is to go like this. But like if you don't have mobile shoulders, just putting your hands like that is uncomfortable. So when you coach exercises like this is the exercise, Brett, was this, and then pulling back, right? So when you're coaching someone like that, make sure you're coaching them through hand position. Like, hey, whatever feels more comfortable. Same thing with crab walks, right? Like, hey, whatever feels good for your shoulder, the crab walk is fine with me as long as you're not feeling like you're creating like too much pressure on your joint. And with this exercise specifically, or crab walks, you always want to get them to activate their triceps first. I'm not lifting like this, right? I'm pushing away so I feel my triceps and then lifting. So I'm in a safer position than just like loading my bones in my joint and not my muscle. But yeah, hand position, so planking with dumbbells under their wrist, right? Simple one. Hand position number 2. And then number 3 is, hey, none of those are working, let's go to your forearm. Get rid of the hand plank and just change it to a forearm plank. Chest pressing, barbell chest pressing. What am I worried about with wrist placement? Like, what am I watching for? Exactly, right? I just want to make sure if I'm dealing with an advanced lifter, I don't care if they roll their wrist because that's strengthening their wrist too, right? Getting them in different ranges of motion. How can I mobilize someone's wrist? Any ideas? Wrist rolls, right? Wrist rolls, great. Yeah. So one thing I don't love about that exercise is because I think if I leave someone, they go like this. I want someone to be really stiff about it. Hey, I want you to try to access all points of your wrist that you probably don't access on a regular basis, right? Kind of like cars, right? Other ones we use are forearm, you'll see it in the program called forearm loaders to strengthen and mobilize the wrist. So if someone has tendonitis, this is an exercise you definitely see for them, right? Fingers back, push down, pull away. I have really bad tendonitis in both my elbows and I'm hypermobile. So would you ever want my arms locked out doing something like this? No. Someone that's hypermobile or have tendonitis, you're always gonna keep just a slight bend. And I say or if they have both, but. Or if they're double jointed, exactly. Which one of our new clients, who is it?
So I want to think about just
Shit. I can't think of what it is. Someone we just started coaching is like so mobile to the point I'm like, I'm not sure if that's okay. I can't remember. Anyways, but anytime I've coached him, I'm keeping him slightly bent on most things. So fingers back, right? Fingers forward, drive shoulders over. Keep the palm of the hand down, right? Fingers out, rock lateral, hand stays down, right? Fingers in, rock lateral. And then last and most difficult would be here. And we have like Paul, who was here when you guys first came in. He's doing push-ups like this now. So he's here and doing push-ups.
That's the guy that plays tennis?
Mm-hmm. But like that's taken him literally probably a year to get to that exercise because it puts so much strain on your wrists, but that's a great thing. You can do same regression as we do with push-ups, right? Okay, if it's your first time doing it, we'll go here, right? Push up from here, and then work on then loading the whole body, but those are, it's not, I mean, it's painful on this. I want a mat under my hands, but it's really not painful. I think it's more of like a trust thing. Like people are like, well, my wrist doesn't do that. Like, I'm not. Yeah. So let's say like our client Sarah's coming back soon and she is the most immobile wrist I've ever seen in my life. Like she can't even go like this. This is what her hand looks like. There's no way she can put her hand down. So the floor is gonna feel really aggressive for her, right? So what I can do to make it a little easier for her.
you make it just in your mouth and give her dumbbell.
But if I want to do those stretches, I want to do the 5 stretches I just showed you. What can I do that's not so intense as the floor?
Oh, put it on the pad.
Put her on a pad, yeah. You could do that. That's what, yeah, the wall. That's what I would do. Completely unload her lower body. Just let her work on accessing all of them, because for someone who's that tight, it feels like pain. She's like, no, this is painful, right? Because like she's never done anything to her wrist her whole life. So now when you're asking her to use her wrist, she's like, no, this is pain. So you've seen these guys, wrist curls with dumbbells? You've seen stuff like that? So what we do usually is I'll have someone on the edge of the bench, right? I'll have them stabilize their elbow because I don't want their bicep helping them. I'm gonna have them get as much extension as I can and then as much flexion, right?
Your forearm too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm gonna go palm down. You'll see those in programming. We do, yep, wrist curl, wrist extension. Someone that has tendonitis or it's a great grip strength exercise. Elbow pin to side, right? I'm gonna try to get as much rotation as I can this way and as much rotation as I can this way without cheating and letting the PVC drop, right? So I'm gripping it, trying to externally rotate as much as I can, internally rotate as much as I can. Why do I feel really weak right there? Working my forearm muscles, right? Trying to cure imbalances that are creating that tendonitis. Wrist rolls, plate drops. Have you ever seen plate drops? Ow. Plate drops, right? Down your side. Once again, they're cheating if they're using their whole palm like this. I just want their fingers doing the work. That's a great exercise. Push-ups, same as chest press, right? I just want knuckles to the floor. I don't want someone like this the whole time. When I'm having someone do an elevated push-up, and when I'm teaching them, do I care about their elbow placement?
When you're first teaching them, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you want so that you're able to engage everything else you're looking to engage? Yeah, exactly. I don't want them right against, right? I also don't want them out here. I want them somewhere in the middle. And the reason I said it like that is because obviously the client gets more advanced. I'm going to coach them through different hand positions. But when I'm trying to get them to understand what muscles I want them to use, I'm really going to stick to that 45. You can identify hyperextension in the elbow. Definitely keep people away from it. Same with the knees. Like you'll see people lock out their knees, but not lock out their quads. So they'll lock out their knee like that, right? But they won't. This is me with my quad engaged, locked out. This is me with just my knee locked out, right? It's good to be able to identify those things because people don't realize they're doing it. Okay, I need you to squeeze this muscle instead of just squeeze your joint. How can I tell someone's fully locked out on their shoulder? Let's just use the let's use the shoulder joint just because it's simple. How can I tell that someone's locked out? What am I looking for? If I'm shoulder pressing, what am I gonna look for to make sure that they're locked out? Bone stacking. So I want to see, just like when I'm watching someone squat, I want to see someone wrist, elbow, and shoulder fully locked out up top, straight arm, right? You see the angle difference? Yeah, that's really important. And if someone can't access that full shoulder lockout, I need to regress the exercise somehow. Maybe I make it a single arm, right? That's an easy way of unloading the spine a little bit so they're able to access it, or the shoulder. Or I just need to get rid of the overhead shoulder altogether, depending on the person. Questions? No? You know, I just thought of as a good one has anyone ever seen the band on your arch to support your arch when you're squatting? That's a really good, there's a lot of people with flat feet. What you can do is just give a heavier band right around the arch to help pull into that outside of that foot more. It's another way of working on arch support. Because if I feed into the band, my foot immediately goes like that, right? So I'm fighting against the band. Sorry, that was totally off subject. I just thought about it.
What happened when you done?
Questions?
Your butt?
Yeah.